allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Patty, you want to do roll call, please?
Debbie? Here. Dave?
Here.
Carol?
Here?
Here.
Here.
Bill?
Here.
New business. Discussion of request made to treasurer and board direction. So at this time, I'm going to turn this meeting over to Steve Katona to tell us what your request is, or has been.
Well, about a week or so ago, I got a phone call from our state assemblyman, Bob Culp, and he wanted to arrange a meeting between myself and some 7 or 8 people, basically to discuss what, I'm not entirely sure. It included a bank balance with a lot of numbers. First of all, my name is Steve Katona. I've got a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration with Natrona County. I've got 35 years of experience in profit and not-for-profit, manufacturing, and service sector. I'd like to ask somebody in the group of the 7 or 8 people, why me? Yes, sir.
When we met with Mr. Culp, it was his suggestion to talk to you. It wasn't the group's idea.
Okay. So Bob thought I was a pretty good guy to talk to? Bob thought I was a pretty good guy to talk to?
Yeah, that's what he said. He asked us about if we knew you really well and what we thought of you, and we didn't really know you that well. So
Okay.
he said he did know you.
I'll take that as a compliment from Bob. What's the beef? Why are we meeting?
Well, we're just still looking for answers to what had happened maybe 5, 6 years ago.
And what's your understanding of that, sir?
Well, we've discovered after I left the board that there were money orders being used for payments that never came through the town board for board approval. So that opens up possibilities of fraud. And that was in the audit's report.
Okay, so there's this suspicion of...
It's just wanting to know where the money really went with these money orders. If these money orders are legitimately spent in the town, there's no problem, it'll all go away. But we need answers to where this money really went and who got all this money. The investigation showed $60,000 worth of money orders in one account, and I have another account that showed around $13,000 in a separate account. And we don't know for sure as a board. When I was on the board for 2 years, none of this came to the board for board approval. And that is against the law, to disperse any money without the chairman's signature or board approval.
Okay.
Where does those come from? Fire department?
From where?
Was that from the fire department?
The accounts, what the auditor, or not the auditor, the investigator showed was like Parks Department, Fall Fest, there was a couple other accounts. I think there was quite a few accounts that were used for money orders.
Because I think years ago when they did the money orders, it was because they didn't have a checking account off of those accounts. But I think all those money orders were definitely accounted for, and they went through by the auditors.
That's all we're asking, to see them then, to see them and where they went. That's all we want.
What years and which ones? I guess
Well,
you make a request to...
We know the News Herald requested this information, and
From who?
from who?
Yeah.
The News Herald requested the township for this information, and ended up that we have to hire a lawyer
Well, see, my understanding of that was that it's all in archives now, and it would cost, what did they say, $30-some an hour, or whatever it was, to go through them to find them.
Well,
So,
Mr. Falk sent me an email about this opens record laws, and there is no hourly rate.
well, we're not charging, the bank would be,
Correct.
okay? The bank can charge,
Mhm. Well,
so,
if that's what the News Herald wanted, why didn't you, why not give it to them? I mean, why not?
well, it was left at the News Herald, I believe, if they wanted to pay the bank to do this. Am I correct? Or am I wrong on that?
The request was for copies of CDs back to 1999. And,
Not CDs, money orders.
I mean, money orders, excuse me. And if it was gonna cost more than $30
That's what it was.
to get back to them. So they went to the bank, and the bank said it would be at least $500 to $1,000.
Yeah, that letter, I have a copy of that. It's-
Yeah.
It's very intimidating type letter, I believe, in my opinion.
It's what?
It's kind of intimidating. That
No,
kind of
it's what,
money.
because everything is archived now, everything. When we did the investigation, I was able, for the ones that I was requested to follow up on, I went to the bank, and we were able to pull up all of those,
Well,
because they had them here in Marshfield.
so you do have one then?
I don't have them, the investigator has them.
No?
All he wanted was copies, and the bank made a copy front and back of each money order and gave them to him.
Well, I requested that document of all copies of the investigation, and there's nothing on there about money orders, nothing.
Well, then you have to go ask him what he did with them, because I provided them for him.
Mhm.
I did it. That's why I spent over 100 hours going through all of this stuff that he asked me to do. I did everything he said, and I gave it all to him. Rick Dewar called me and asked me for a copy of the spreadsheet. I never saw a spreadsheet. I don't have a clue what the spreadsheet was. All I did was provide the documents that he wanted, and I gave him that. I don't have any of that stuff.
Well, I did have a meeting with Mr. Hammerman, the DA, and he said that our town would want a forensic audit. And what the investigator did was not a forensic audit. You need a forensic audit.
We had well, the investigator doesn't do the audit. The forensic audit that was done for $10,000
No.
was done.
It's in the report that the auditor says it was not a forensic audit.
Well, then why did we pay $10,000? You're the one that requested Schenck to do this. So why did we pay $10,000 for that audit?
I don't know.
And it's not considered a forensic audit?
It's in the report saying it was not a forensic audit. And
Well, I have no idea. I don't have anything to do with that.
Which
they're
report
telling-
are you referring to?
Pardon me?
Which report are you referring to? Detective's report?
The auditor.
The auditor's report said that, or, no, not, the detective's report said that. I believe it was the detective's report.
I don't know. Maybe you should go back to Schenck and ask him what he did for that
Well, we
$10,000.
just want transparency, we just want
Well,
to know.
then you got it. I mean, I gave everything
Well,
there was.
We want to see it.
Well, then you have to go to the county and get it from that investigation, because I didn't keep any of that
I got
stuff.
it right here, and there's nothing on it. That's what they sent me, everything. It's supposed to be on the CD.
Who sent it?
The Sheriff Parks,
Who did you get that from?
Sheriff Parks.
And it's a CD on what?
It's a disc of the investigation of this, and all the records that he had, everything. Everything's supposed to be on here.
Well, then why isn't it there? I mean, I don't know where it is. Go to the investigator. Go to the district attorney. I don't know. All I got was the report that everybody else was able to go pick up from the county when it was done.
When we had our meeting with Sheriff Parks and Detective Laser, he come right out and admitted that he was not the right guy for this investigation. I'm not an accountant, I can't add numbers. He said all that. He said that you people really need a forensic audit. He told us that.
So we had a financial audit
Yes,
particular to this, and the detective came and investigated?
and the detective came and investigated. Because of the money orders are never board approved.
And we've had subsequent, at least one subsequent financial audit, and two since then.
Oh, God,
Oh,
yeah.
no, we've had them every year except for
Well,
last
we've
year.
had reviews and we've had audits, but I mean, we've been audited at least once, if not twice. So that's.
What year was that, Butch?
It was in 11 when I got off the board, so that the investigation didn't start till 12.
So you're requesting an audit of what year?
Me? I didn't request anything.
Whoever is requesting an audit.
What year did Mr. Culp request?
I don't think you did.
I don't think he did. He mentioned a bank account, he went back and cited analysis from 2005 until recent history. I'm not sure which account he's referring to. So we've had something that was more strenuous than just a financial audit for $10,000. We've had a detective come in and take a look at it. We've had one, or not, if not two, financial audits. And they haven't found anything. Yes, sir.
Bruce Wyman, M636 Galvin Avenue. I was around when Mr. Culp was talking about this. The first issue is the only person, and you weren't personally legally allowed to get that information from the bank. Only the treasurer can do that. That was one thing that he found out as a result of talking to counsel at the state level. That's why you were asked.
The copies of the
Any
draft.
bank account copies cannot be acquired by anybody but the treasurer.
Okay.
So that's what Mr. Culp said. And I have an email that supports that particular issue.
Okay.
So that you ask, why were you asked? That's why you were asked.
Okay.
Number two, the investigator from Marathon County, I sat and listened to him give his rendition of what went on. And he did in fact say that he had no experience in doing any kind of financial investigation. The question was raised at that point as to why Mrs. Opitz was even inquired with about this, because she had nothing to do with what went on at that particular time. So that's the reason why you're being asked. And as the treasurer, even if they hired you, and I guess I don't quite understand, we the people have no apparently recourse, because this little round robin that gets set up is that I didn't say it and you didn't say it and I can't do it because you told me I can't do it, and etc. It begins to be a round robin that will never end any place. And the only thing that's been asked is that we see some information that was generated and then somehow miraculously disappeared. And since the only person that can inquire from the bank, and I can't imagine it would take anything, it would not cost the township for the treasurer to ask for records from that time, which is exactly why you were asked.
Okay. What's the time frame and how many, we're looking for money orders, right?
Right.
Okay. What's the time frame?
Whenever she started them, I don't know when. I mean,
I think the News Herald suggested a time date situation because the whole issue is because nobody knows.
Okay.
And there seems to be a great deal of foot dragging, which makes one begin to be very questioning of the veracity of the people who are doing the foot dragging. If it was some woman, her husband gave her an excuse of that magnitude or non-magnitude, she would assume he was a liar. So this whole thing, as the question gets asked, is an issue that keeps going on, and it keeps getting sidestepped and avoided. And so the person The only thing that I understand is that you were asked because legally speaking, you are the only person that can request that information. Even the chairman can't do that.
What's the rough time frame?
I think it was from 2000.
I think it was around 2000. I could get back to you.
And that's why
I have a copy of the letter as well from the News Herald, but the chairman has a copy from the News Herald.
Okay.
Well,
Hey,
So
yeah.
the chairman should be able to supply you with that.
I tried to get that from Patty, the copy of
We
the
just
lawyer's.
found it.
Oh, you found it,
We
huh?
found it.
Because
Yeah.
Colt wanted that.
Yeah, well, we found it. Actually, we found it, I found
Oh,
it
good.
today.
So then you shouldn't be
I
in
have the
trouble if you
letter,
make.
but all it says on there
Gotcha.
is that he wants a copy, that he requested a copy of, and that was what was submitted to Pioneer Bank, was the 1999, all money orders from 1999
Forward,
forward.
yes. And so
And-
that's, you asked the time frame, Steve, that's the time frame.
Okay. Do we have a copy of the auditor's report?
Should be in each year.
No, I don't mean the annual report, but I mean, there was a special audit.
There was an audit, but it wasn't a forensic
It
audit.
wasn't
The audit that
forensic,
was
but-
done, a
but it was
forensic
an
audit is what the
specific to
district.
this.
The
No,
district
no.
attorney said we should have a forensic audit. The implication was that I, as a citizen of the town, could purchase one of those. Personally, it's my opinion that as a citizen of the town, it's not my job to purchase one of those. I already purchased it every year I pay my taxes. If there's a question raised, but if there's no reason to do it, so the starting place is to find out what these accounts were about. And the reason why the question is asked, because there are no answers.
Accounts or money orders, Bruce?
The money orders, well, they were money orders, and they were apparently were involved in one of the accounts. The interim clerk that was brought on at the recommendation of Ms. Comke from, I think it's Comke, the county clerk?
Okay.
Kotke, Nan Kotke.
Yeah, Nan.
Nan.
That was what she recommended, an interim clerk, which the board hired as an interim clerk. And she was the one that started to find these. As it turns out, her time didn't last long. And so this all then stopped again. But you're the only person that can get hold of that information legally. And you shouldn't have any trouble doing that, because if it's a bank record, their archiving system does not mean they threw it into a big bin and put it in the National Archives where only 2 or 3 people with exceptional understanding can put it. They should be able to go to a computer and come up with that information like any other. I mean, if that financial institution is not that reliable, then maybe one should think about whether or not they want to do business with it.
Do we know which account the money orders were drawn in?
They have absolutely no idea. That's why the questions are being asked. Maybe Butch does, I don't know.
Account numbers?
Well, the general description, we got 5 or 6 accounts now, I don't know what we had back then.
On the Laser report, he has a number of 5070236.
Again, please?
5070236, which is a Fall Fest funds.
The fire department.
Right, that's where they come up with $59,804.92 money orders. And these money orders are not specifically being approved by the town board. This opens up the town up for increased fraud risk because town disbursement controls are being bypassed.
How are money orders considered when you're doing reconciliation in a bank account? They go through as cash, is that correct?
It's a check.
It's a check.
It's a check.
It's a check, and so the
What most
ones
people
that I
think of as a
saw.
cashier's check is actually a money order.
Yeah, okay, so when I was asked to go through these and get these, which I got, and the bank, Pioneer Bank, gave me a copy of the front of it and the back of it. And it showed, then I went through the statements and found where they were all recorded in the statements. So
Can
I
you
mean,
s-
I don't know how the
You just
reporting
wanna-
was done at that time with them, because after I was on board, we've never had a money order, ever.
No.
So I don't know how they went through.
I do agree.
But I don't know I don't know what kind of a financial report you got. So, I mean, I don't have a clue.
I got the detective's report.
Well, I have the detective's report, but it doesn't say, I don't know, I don't remember what it said. Yes, Dorothy?
See, Dave, you've been on the board the longest. Has it always been traditional to do money orders? Or is
Well, I
that
think at that point in time, we had,
No, before that. I mean, you've been here before this all started. Was it traditional to do money orders?
I guess I don't recall.
See, you know, the
At
problem
that
is,
point in time, I think it was probably easier to do a money order because of the fall festival, the in and out accounts, because our fall festival, and if that's what you're after, there ain't a goddamn cent you can quote me that is missing anyplace.
I just asked if this was a traditional way. You know, I'm not picking fall festival
Okay, I
part or
appreciate-
anything.
Dorothy,
All I'm
I
asking
appreciate
is was this traditional to do money orders?
I think what you should be asking is John for Fall Fest. You were the,
Till what year?
Whatever the flood was.
2002.
2002. My understanding was that and I was not chief anymore, I think Carl Greenberg was chief at the time, that it had something to do with the fact that prior to the board taking over, the fire department had its own checking account, which was audited, okay, every year. As a matter of fact, if you remember, David, it was audited by some private people, and a subcommittee from the fire department audited it, then somebody else audited it. So that was, the money was, available, and it was also that we weren't doing anything wrong. Okay? May I offer this to the board, maybe a unique situation? Why don't you have a third party, okay, interview the former clerk who we're talking about, who allegedly put these money orders into effect, did not come to the board for approval, right? Don't do it with a township person, do it with a third party investigator. And if that person is not forthcoming, then you know that maybe there is a problem that you'll have to investigate deeper. That's all I'm saying, is go to the source, find out what they were for, then at least you would know where to look, and you would know, why, right? And the only thing that I ever heard about the money orders were the fact that they were done because there was an interim period where they didn't have a checking account, and
well,
they
that's
couldn't.
what I had heard too, is that.
Yeah, they couldn't get to the board, and I have no idea beyond that. That was a conversation in 2002. My memory's terrible, I can't even remember what I had for breakfast.
Dale was
Yeah.
chief after you, right?
Dale was chief right after me, and then
Carl.
Carl. Well,
Or
Dave
Dave.
Carlson was chief, and then
Yeah. So
Carl
was-
Greenberg. And I thought it was during Carl's era. Again, that was just, I just happened to be in the clerk's office on other business when these money orders were talked about, and it was something to do with the fall festival and being able to advance cash to bands and so on, so they could get them booked. But that's all I know. I mean, I wish I could tell you more, I just don't.
Well, my understanding is that's why when I came on board was that what we needed to do, I was told, and I don't remember who told me this at some point, that the fire department was afraid that the board was going to take the money they had raised and use it for someplace else. And so therefore, we needed to do something to make this transparent and make it theirs. And so at that point, I said, well, why don't we pass an ordinance that establishes this volunteer fund, which we did. We did that. And therefore, I mean, every cent that comes in goes through the clerk, it goes through the treasurer, and everything that goes out goes through them. And so I think that, well, why those were done was because they have access to this money now. If they need to send money to the band, that's their money that they can do that. And that's what the ordinance provided for them.
And it may have been early on in the years, the 70s, the 80s and so on, that the fire department should never have had their own account. That the fire department would be either a corporation individually who sold their services to the township, or a township-owned fire department, which this is now. So somewhere along that line, that was changed so the account was then turned over to the town, and the fire department is actually the town fire department, subject to board approvals on certain things. So was it illegal? I don't know, but it certainly wasn't up to the code standards of the state, and then whatever board at whatever period of time brought the checking account into the township account.
It's in the statutes
Yeah,
that they can have
right,
their own
right.
checkbook.
And I don't know when the statutes were passed, I didn't go back that far and research it.
I don't either.
Everything seems to be.
But the ordinance provides what you need, and I have to admit, in going through that investigation, it was difficult, because it was to find the records.
I think the transparency issue that somebody said has to be addressed, okay?
Well, it
This
is,
has
it
to be
has
put to bed, so
been.
you don't have a group of citizens thinking that there was improprieties and money being stolen, moved around. If that was the case, then somebody has to pay the penalty. If it wasn't the case, you need to get an answer, all right? And we just can't continue on year after year with this controversy. But it's whatever we have to do.
I agree. I think we should get the information out that was requested and go from there. And I have a suggestion for, like, you had the copies of the stuff and gave it to someone else. When I was on a board, any original that ever came in to the union did not leave that hall.
But we never
All
had-
originals were kept. If somebody needed something, they got a copy of it. The originals never left, so you never had to worry about losing something.
Well, that's good.
That wasn't the point. The
No.
point was, it wasn't lost, it was where it was filed
Yeah.
and how.
No, I mean, but I'm
That's
talking
it,
about,
so,
I'm talking about,
we have all of
you
that.
had the copy of the money orders and you gave them to that investigator, so now,
But the bank made
now
the
you,
copies and I
now
just
you
handed them
don't,
over.
right, and so you don't have them.
Madam
You would have made a
Madam
copy.
Chairman, would you entertain having a special investigator talk to like Carl Greenberg, who away from everybody else, okay? And one to the former clerk, which is Donna Sokola, okay? And have their, where they can't be together for matching whatever, if there was some a smack of conspiracy or something. I just think that's the easiest way to do it. If they're truthful and forthcoming, you've got your answers. If they're not, then you have to go further.
Okay, well, number one, who's gonna pay for all of this? Because the bank has already told us, if they have to go back to 1999, up to present time, it will be anywhere from 500 at the lowest, up to well over $1,000.
Well, how about
So
your
who's gonna pay for
Well,
it?
how about your errors and omission insurance? Check with your insurance carrier, see if you can be covered that way. This is a forensic investigation. You should fall on that. That was actually a town employee at the time. Both people were town employees, both the fire chief and so on. And I'm not bringing Carl into this, I'm just mentioning the time frame. And the clerk was a bona fide, employee of the town and served at the wishes of the board. So I think you ought to check your insurance companies first. I don't think the taxpayer ought to pay for it, honestly, period. I mean, I for one don't want to pay a dime for anything, because I didn't do anything wrong, or did anybody else, I don't know. But you have to find out. It's got to be put to bed.
Well, I told him when the investigator came to us and he said, I have all these, we are requesting all of these records. And I said, well, I will be happy to get them for you, but we're not paying for it. You're gonna pay for the cost of doing that. So we never paid for a cent in that, but we only did 1 year. We did 1 year, but there was everything was I mean, it was, you know, the bank were very good about it, but now they don't have any of that stuff. Then when they built the new place, they moved it completely out of the bank.
Well,
Somebody else has it.
But as Bruce said, the records are available, they're somewhere.
Oh, they're there.
Yeah.
It's just you're gonna pay
So-
dearly for
Well,
it.
we gotta get them.
Well, we already spent $1,000 on a lawyer to write a letter that probably, in hindsight, should have just went toward getting the copies of the money orders.
If the bank is conducting a general search for something, that's one thing, but if we tell them specifically that on this date, the money draft, the money order went through, so if we've got the physical record, maybe we could identify that and reduce that cost quite a bit.
Well, you know,
How
I
are you
think,
gonna find that?
Well, somewhere over by, I don't know how far back those records go, that filing room is a zoo, but
I'm guessing each box is a year.
maybe.
That's what it used to be.
Yeah.
And it's marked on there, which box is what year, and it should all be in there.
But but it doesn't state that it's a money order on there, I don't
No.
think, you know, on the statements.
Mhm.
And that's what you're gonna be looking at.
Well, it depends on what the bank statement says. I mean, if it's got a list of checks and then there's something like an
Right.
ACH in today's terms, that's one thing, but if it's all money orders,
It might
Then
say
you've got
certified
full
checks.
account. Yes,
money
Bruce.
money orders have receipts, right?
I'm sorry?
Money orders have receipts, you get a copy
Right.
of the receipt of the money order, right? And if it is in essence in the town
Mhm.
office, clerk's office, and marked in 99, 2000, 2001, do a search, look through it, you know? I mean, if it isn't there, it isn't there, but if it is there, then you have the documents.
Did they have anything over?
Bruce
there?
Wyman at 636 Galvin Avenue. It would be my understanding, if I were going to inquire from somebody whether or not there was questionable practice going on, I wouldn't probably start with the person that I was thinking, since I really don't know anything at this point. But if you're looking for some serious information and you can't find it in those boxes, you might try calling or contacting Mrs. Dittman, who did find it the first time and may be able to give you a head start on that particular issue. That would just make the most sense to me. And I can't imagine a business such as a bank who deals with records of money disposition is going to charge $1,000 to go back and get your information. I can understand if they would do that as an attorney. If an attorney came to them and said, I want this, then they will charge a huge amount. I have other experience in that particular area. But for the person who has been doing business with them, I can't imagine them not, first of all, having access to their records, and second of all, not being able to give them to you. But you're a bachelor's of business administration, and you are an accountant, and I trust that you understand this much better than I do.
What, Butch?
It is labeled money orders right on top of the receipt.
Yes, yeah.
It says money order right on it.
But that copy, see, that copy that you have there is like what I went to the bank, because we don't have copies of that I know of. Of course, there's a lot of boxes that we've never been able to get through here, but the bank did that for us, because they had the money orders there. She did all of that for us at the bank here, in Pioneer Bank. And that's what she gave that to me, I handed it to the detective. And that was it. But I
Do
didn't,
you know how many years of that?
we did the whole year of 2009 is what the investigation was.
Well, how many do you have, Butch?
I got about $13,000 worth.
Well, that would have been for the year.
Small amount that Nancy Dittman found at the time.
Well, then you got more.
So
than
where
I do.
did you get that from?
Nancy Dittman, when she was our clerk.
Oh, so she went to the bank and got
I don't
it?
know where she got them.
Yeah, because that's the only way I could find it.
I don't know. You know,
I don't know.
thing is that
I don't
the
know.
money
Anyway,
orders-
where are we going with this?
The money orders
That's
are-
why we're here today.
Yeah, they're going out to people for those. That's kind of, why are people getting money orders? You know, I just question that.
There's
We
a
don't-
couple
I don't know
hundred
what they look like.
money orders went to people.
Who'd they
What's
go
that
to?
saying right there on that one? Who's it to?
Christine Nichols.
Well, that would have been for Fall Fest.
Yeah, well,
That would have been reimbursement.
What did she do to get the money?
Well-
Here's one for $150,
Okay, I went,
even amount.
what year is that?
Eight 27 of 10.
See, that's the way that they did that for the Fall Fest,
Yeah, but I
was
just need
she
to
would
know,
buy
what
things
did
and that's,
she do to get that money? And what did? here's
she
another-
bought stuff for the silent
Silent
auction.
auction.
And all of the papers were there, for the
275.
2009 that I went through. And then she was reimbursed that way. I mean,
If you're
why
just
there
gonna
was,
see the bill?
I don't know why it was done the way it was. I'm
Let's
just,
see the
It was
bill.
for,
Let's-
it was for transparency. Historically, we started out in '88 with a 100-year celebration, correct?
Yeah, well, actually what happened, the reason that we did it is the fire department took it over because
There you go.
it was planned as a centennial, but the plans went awry because the people who were supposed to have the Sheer Lumberjack Show told the individual who was heading that they could not make the date in June.
Right.
And it went all winter and early spring before we actually called them and they told us the truth. So we pushed it back to September, and if you remember at that particular time, the fire department said that they would take over running it so we get the centennial operative and have our centennial, actually have our celebration, and we did. After that, members of the township and the fire department members decided that it would be really nice to have an annual event, okay? And that's actually how the Fall Festival started. You know, and everybody knows the history of how much money we made. It's huge, hundreds of thousands of dollars, of which it all went back into equipment and apparatus and so on.
And we came to the
Right.
point where we were handling a lot of money, didn't feel comfortable, so we did the money order thing.
And I think there was a lack of communication, David, in this issue that we're talking about right now, this money order.
Yep.
Where, as I was just talking to Ron, and Ron's been on the fire department as long as we have, that there was some mistrust on both sides, okay? And there was no communication between the fire department and the town at that juncture. And somebody had to do something, right?
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of the stuff happened. But, you know, unless you can substantiate every portion of these expenses, I don't disagree with everybody at all. And I think you should agree too, that we need to have something put to bed. And answers, the right answers, okay? Whether they're impropriety, whether they're illegal, or they were just a mistake, or lousy communications, or whatever, it needs to be finished.
Yep. Put it to bed once and for all.
How many copies of money orders do you have? Roughly.
Just money orders now.
Dozen.
You're gonna need receipts to go
Do you
with that.
have those after the meeting here, and I'll type them up, so I got at least a list to work off of?
Sure.
And those only pertain to 1 year?
I believe so,
Okay.
whatever Nancy gave me.
Well, what I'd like to do, for my part, is at least investigate the file room and see what we've got. And I'll know better at that point.
The other,
Well, that's where the receipts would be anyway, because
You
you're not
would
going to
think.
get the money orders, you're gonna have the receipts now to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
So,
right.
do you have any other account numbers, Butch?
Yeah, they're in here, I gotta find it.
Would you feel comfortable doing the interviews with those two people I suggested?
Which two people?
That would be Carl Greenberg, the former
The fire chief?
Fire chief, and the former clerk.
I suppose.
I mean, you don't have.
I don't have a dog in the hunt, no.
Not in the hunt at all.
No.
No.
Just like the audit we just got done finished with, and they weren't my numbers, I don't care.
You might be possessor
Yeah.
of innate common sense that's wonderful.
Okay.
And I just think that you've got the answers, as people indicated, your background, everything else. You know, I think you've got enough
Well,
experience.
before we go around asking all kinds of people for
Yeah.
records and.
Well, I'm just suggesting the two that were involved in this.
Yeah, I would just like to investigate what we've got in the file room and
Okay.
see what's there. We might have a lot of our own answers
mhm.
and not know it.
Back to one of my original questions, and so The money order has been a practice of the fire department since 90?
No. We never had any money orders whatsoever. Everything we had was in a separate checking account, which we had, and that was from day one when the fire department was actually put together in the 40s. And I can only speak for my era. We still had the account. And then the statutes changed, which indicated that the money out of that fund had to come into the township fund. And that's how it did. It was moved to the township. But that was after I left office.
Yeah, so.
Okay,
so
so
we-
prior to that, no, we never had any money orders at all. We had, as I said, we had our own checking account, so we could write the checks for
Right.
things. And then we had it audited by, we brought in 3 individuals from township, and then 2 officers and a line firefighter, and they did another audit behind it, so that we had a double audit each year. So, you know, there weren't any improprieties. And those always worked out right to the penny. And especially when we started to make a considerable amount of money, you know, in some years we made $35,000 to $45,000 on the fall festival. So consequently, that is a lot of money, so
Well,
people
right.
had to make sure that was all accounted
So
for.
in my search of the file room, I'm going to be looking for Fall Fest or Fire Department banking records from 1999 earlier.
It looks like all the money orders were written to substantiate the fall festival activities.
Okay, well, that's what I'll be focusing on.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we should be
but-
able to detect the difference between a check, if there ever were any checks,
Yeah.
or just a money order, yeah.
Like Mr. Ortell said, we're in a situation here where it's $50,000, $13,000. It's a lot of money, it's $63,000.
Sure. Perfect.
Well, it would be my suggestion that you look for any money orders, because money orders, by reason of the way the legal disbursement of money through the township are not legal, because they don't pass by the board.
Right.
And so I'd look for any, forget about them being just with the fire department. If one's concerned about what they are, if you find any money orders? That's the reason why one is going to cast a broad net in order to find out what's happened. You cast the net far enough back so you can manage to pick up whatever you're looking for. And I'm sure that would be what I would
The number of
expect.
accounts that we've got today are somewhat representative of what we had 10 years ago. That's
Yeah.
reasonable. Okay.
So, when the News Herald made their request, I trust they were doing the same thing. They wanted to know as far enough back to see if there was anything that seemed questionable.
Okay.
That is the only question. And if you come up with relatively zero, or if something, a reasonable way to explain why this method is used, I trust that the board in future will not do that sort of thing, that the law will be followed in every financial transaction, because we elected those people that are sitting up there at this point. Nobody else really has control of the money. Even the fire chief is not, he's a hired individual.
Well, that's the good news of the day, is the fact that we have isolated the incident. It's not happening now, it hasn't been happening
Oh,
for
it
years.
hasn't.
It's very clean right now.
Years.
I have a suggestion. Seems out from what I found out, that the auditor that did this audit wasn't given any of them money orders because they weren't aware of it. Now, if the board never knew these money orders and the bank account was in existence, how about getting the bank balances from the bank from the year 2000 to the present, or till when was this, 11, 12? And see what they had for all our accounts there, and see if those balances matched our financial reports.
I'm guessing it will.
Because if there were
They had all that.
secret accounts
You didn't have to
that
see.
nobody knew about,
Yeah.
There weren't any.
That,
secret
for the
accounts.
year of 2009, everything, I had the statements, everything, I had the invoices, I had everything that I went through for that year. And by the way, I did have permission to go to the bank, because the district attorney, it wasn't me getting permission, the district attorney told me I would go to the bank and get those. So whether it's not lawful or not,
I
I
am
have
just-
no idea.
Ma'am, I am just repeating what our state assemblyman told us after consulting with counsel at the state level. It's the only thing I can say. I'm not an attorney. I'll give you an opinion on reproductive endocrine infertility and microsurgical procedures, but I will not give you a professional opinion on law.
Okay, well, when the district attorney comes and tells you to do something, I said to him, well, because we did have a board meeting, and I said, okay, I've been approached, and I had a couple people say, don't give them anything. So I said to the detective, okay, so what if I tell you we're not gonna cooperate? He said, your office will be shut down immediately, and we will get it. So, would you like to participate or not? And I said, absolutely, I'll participate. You know, so, I mean, and that's what it was. So, I mean, everything, and I'd be happy to go through with you and show you exactly what I did with each, for that year, because it took me hours and hours, first of all, to even find the stuff. And so now, without numbers and so forth, and the request from the News Herald was all CDs or money orders from 1999 to present. That's what we gave to the bank. And the bank came back with the letter stating that, you know, this will cost also, in the letter from the News Herald, said, if it's gonna cost more than $30, let us know. So we told them what the bank had told us, and we never heard another word. So that's where that sits.
Steve, to answer your question about the accounts, it says an audit report here. It says during our audit, it came to our attention that money orders are being used to pay invoices out of Fire Department Fall Fest, thermal imaging, and park savings.
Okay.
So there's 3 different accounts apparently that they.
It would be useful to me in the next few weeks to have a liaison with one of you people.
Isn't thermal imaging part of the fire department?
Yes, it is. There was a special savings account for the thermal imaging.
So it's a designated account.
Isn't that also saying that
It was a
there
savings
nothing
account.
no wrongdoing in that audit? I mean, usually it does say.
It just brings up the word of risk of fraud. Risk of fraud. It's repeatedly said in the audit report.
Yeah, but they do that for anything that they check when they do an audit.
Every audit says that.
Yeah.
But the money orders was
I mean, there's
a
a
big
risk
problem.
of fraud if.
But it's not a problem if they are legal, because I
No,
checked
they're not
on
legal.
that.
They're not legal.
Yes, they are.
The chairman never signed them. How can that be legal? State statute says.
I'm saying that people that use money orders to payment are legal.
Sure, but not in
They
the
are.
township.
And if you have a follow-up and it goes through the statement and you bring that, if it's in the, the financial report monthly, and you approve, the board approved them.
They didn't approve these money orders. I was there. It didn't happen. It never happened.
Well, maybe that was not
And Mr.
labeled money
And
orders.
also, Mr.
It may be that it wasn't made, you know, and that's not right either.
John Troutman made the statement how he can only audit what was given to him, and these accounts are not given to him.
And how did he, is that the audit that made mention of those 3
It's in
accounts?
the report.
Well, if it wasn't given him, then how could he even know about them?
May I read one paragraph? I have a copy of the report from Detective Laser from Marathon County. And this is his review of the initial records. He said, I reviewed the initial documents provided to me from the Marathon County District Attorney's Office through Lieutenant Bean. In looking at an audit report completed by Shank SC, Certified Public Accountants, a statement was that the audit was to provide reasonable but not absolute assurance, and because their office didn't perform a detailed examination of all transactions, there was a risk of material errors, fraud, and non-compliance with laws or other acts not detected by their office. there were comments within the body of the report about how money orders were being used to pay invoices from the fire department Fall Fest, thermal imaging, and park savings accounts. These money orders were not specifically approved by the town board and could open the town to increased risk of fraud. And I think that's what this is all about. I've been a citizen here for about 40 years now. I'm only now getting interested in the town board and the proceedings and whatever. But I think this has been hanging out there way too long. I've heard about this way back in 2000, maybe 2001, whatever. We used to come to the Fall Fest when they would ask for pies, you know, to be donated for the fest. That's how far I go back. And this thing has been lingering now for so long. I think it has to be cleared up one way or the other, whatever has to be done.
Who
I think
entitles to that account?
I think there's too many citizens out here in this township that have this thing hanging, and it's not being resolved. That's
Who had
my-
title to that account? Does anyone know back then?
Excuse me?
Who had title to that account? Was it the town's money or was it
I-
distinct and separate? It was entirely the fire department's.
It was
It's
the town's
town
money.
money.
It was the town's money.
It's town's money.
And I don't know how the money orders got written, you know, why. I mean, I've
Excuse
heard
me?
about it, but, you know, it's just not, obviously, it wasn't a good business practice, period, okay?
Yeah.
Under any set of circumstances.
So I would never use a money order myself. If
Yeah.
the fire department owed the town $5,000, I'd go down and transfer it.
No,
Because there is no check.
it may have been in the time that the account from the fire department was being transferred to the town, or had been transferred. My understanding was the fire department did not have any funds to continue to write contracts for vans and so on. That's my understanding at that particular time, right?
Well,
And
but
I-
it's still hanging out there.
Yes, it is, and it's gotta be dealt with. There's just too many citizens that have too many questions that simply aren't being answered.
Well, if I can get a copy of those right now, I'll go take them up.
So when a money order is made, does the one who makes the money order, is their name always on there?
It's just like a check. It looks just like a check.
I haven't made.
But they also have to have approval from the, at the banks and in order to get that money order made.
Well, I think you go back to historically, the clerk treasurer was one person
Mhm.
at that time. So that was, you know, basically internally, they could move from a clerk to treasurer sign the checks, right? And have then one member of the board sign, correctly? It was two signature requirements, was it not? That's
What,
still.
for a money order?
No, your checks.
Oh, yeah.
Your checks.
No,
Well, a
three.
money order would
Three.
not be three, would not be, a money order would be just then simply one that would,
It's like a-
someone,
Yeah.
namely the treasurer could write, right? Because the treasurer has access to the funds. So it was a combination treasurer, a clerk at that time, all right? So that one individual had the ability and the authority to write the money order.
There had to be more out there than just Donna. There had to be a fire chief or whatever, you know.
Not necessarily in a money order, that's just a transfer of funds in the bank, from the bank, your checking account or your savings account, into some kind of a liable note, you know, okay, some kind of currency. And the money order is a currency. Now, you have to sign, the individual has to sign it when they get it, but it's
Right.
kind of like American
And
Express
then
travel
there's the
checks.
receipts of it all in
Yeah,
the.
same thing, so that money order actually is cash, that's fine. But you need to go back and get the numbers. You gotta go back and find out
Yeah.
what happened. The cloud of suspicions continue to go, it's gotta go away.
You're right.
Yep, absolutely. Put it to rest.
Well, Steve is getting copies. Is there anything else
He's not in.
on this
Oh, no.
topic?
I'm sorry, I have to excuse myself for another appointment, but I hope this all gets resolved. at some
It
point.
will, it will.
Thank you.
Well, who
Thank you,
wants to
Bill.
help Steve do this? Raise your hand.
Well, it's up to you, you're the
Dorothy,
board,
why don't you?
you're in
Okay.
session, so
Yeah.
any decision is gonna be yours.
Right, but I mean, he asked for somebody to help him.
He asked if there was someone who wanted to volunteer.
Right. So,
well, here he comes, so he can tell us for sure. You just asked for someone to volunteer, correct?
as
To
liaison,
help with you?
Yeah, somebody in the group that I could call and talk to.
Dorothy.
Dorothy has volunteered.
Right.
Okay. Anything else for us to address on this?
I'd like to see you make a motion to have Steve and Dorothy.
Yes, yeah, that's why I wanted to make, before we made the motion, I wanted to see if there was anything else that needed to be included. Okay. All right, we need a motion to approve. I will make the motion for Steve to do the investigation on the money orders with the assistance of Dorothy Olson,
I'll
who
second.
has agreed to do that. Okay, any further discussion on it?
Do you want a time frame?
Oh, that would maybe be good. How busy is your summer?
What time frame? I mean, what years?
Or could it get done in,
Huh?
could it get done in 3 months?
No.
No, we're
I mean,
talking
I
about
thought,
timeframe for the money
didn't
orders.
News Herald asked from 99 on to 2005, was it?
I think it was
Forward.
2010 or something like that, forward, actually, it's to now.
Yeah, why don't you do it till present day?
1999?
Till the last one,
Okay,
whatever it was.
present.
Yeah, well, that's gotta be 6-7 years ago at least.
Well, there
We
hasn't
never
been
had
any
any.
written, no. I have, not, since I've been here, there haven't been any, but, so, well, it would be through 10.
Well, actually,
10.
not to make a smart remark, but that was one of the reasons that Mr. Ortel brought this up. When you say that not that you had any knowledge of, they didn't have any knowledge of it either. So if it happens, you don't have knowledge. That's the reason why the question is being raised.
Mhm.
It's a lack of confidence in what's being shown. And I know
Oh, I see.
Mr. Berger wouldn't conduct his business that way because my father wouldn't have either.
Is there any further discussion? Take a vote.
Deb? Aye. Dave?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Okay. We have one other item to be discussed, which is disapproved call for bids for Galvin Avenue repair project. Do you want to make that motion?
I'll move that we put out the bid, the Galvin Avenue repair project, which includes Galvin Avenue from Elm Street to Highway 97.
I'll second it. Is there,
Didn't we get a price for doing something?
That was.
we had a quote
Oh, okay.
for just the topping,
That
the frosting on the
55,000 or whatever it
can.
was.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, the motion has been made and seconded to approve putting out the call for bids for Galvin Avenue repair project. Is there any further discussion?
Deb? Aye. Dave?
Aye.
Carolyn?
No, we, Paul had his hand
Wait,
up
we're
there.
already in the midst of voting.
Carolyn?
Aye.
Gary?
No.
Joe?
Aye.
Okay, passed.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What do you plan on doing?
It would be wedging, crack sealing wedging and a skin coat, possibility of a skin coat.
Does that fit in the plans with the new CIP that they're developing?
Mhm.
Yep.
How long is that supposed to last?
We don't know, we haven't even put it out for bids yet, so we don't know. That they're pretty much the ones that, yes.
Bruce Wyman, M636 Galvin Avenue. One of the members of the Plan Commission at the annual meeting brought up the issue of the potential for the county reimbursing us to a certain degree. Is that going to be pursued? Because they were responsible for some of the road destruction that went on, if we want to call it that. Is there anybody thinking
Yes,
about looking
I have
at that?
called, I've had a long conversation with Jim Griesbach.
Yeah.
And said, why would you even ask such a thing? And I said, because, there was because of all the traffic. Because I said, I know that you designated a detour, but nobody followed it.
Yeah.
They didn't, and I said, we called for the deputies to come and sit and monitor. None ever showed up. And so I'm asking you for assistance. And he said, well, there is no money for assistance. That will not be discussed, so.
A couple times, I think, when we talked to the engineer, we asked about that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're already noticing there's more traffic on Galvin and Stott. And, well, we'll address that when the issue comes up. Well, there's your answer, so.
We got it dressed on the back table, that's what we got.
Mhm.
There is, we got it dressed on the back table,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean, I'm glad that you pursued it. I mean, I think it's a reasonable, right thing to do. If I mean, the people ought to know, the public ought to know that the county has kind of sacrificed them because they thought it was a good idea. But I'm glad you guys pursued it.
Yes.
There's also, there's one more thing on the table. We've talked to MSA, they've hired MSA now, the engineering firm. They're going to put a letter together, and we're looking at some legal counsel to help them with the letter. And the letter would be given to the board, and the board would pass on it. And one of it would be the criteria used to ask for compensation because they intentionally damaged our roads. Reesbach, of course, will, deny anything, but, we're going to continue through the plan commission to try to hold his foot to the fire.
Well,
And get some recompense.
unless you raise the question,
Yeah.
you will be blamed for not, if you'd asked, we might have done it.
Right, yeah.
we hired them, not fired them.
Hmm?
We hired them,
We
not
thought you
fired them.
said that we fired him.
That's what it sounded
We
like.
thought that's what you said.
What
No.
he said.
Oh, no. Don't do that.
We hired them, not
Hired.
fired.
Yes, no, we didn't.
I thought I
Hired
missed that
him.
board meeting.
But as we had in the meeting with him, the point was go forward with this thing.
Yeah.
Just because Reesbach says there's no money available, doesn't mean that legally we can't get the money.
Yeah.
If we continue to pursue it, because we need to do that. I'm not saying he intentionally damaged our roads, but he knew the consequences but didn't let you know it. And that's wrong.
Well, hell, maybe insurance will pay.
Yeah, right. The plans for the roads are Galvin, what we can see what we can do with this, how far our money will go to do what Dave just said. The other is to prep Birch and do the crack sealing and, what else? What else is it they do,
Dust control.
yeah, well,
Skim
yeah.
coat. Skim coat.
Dust control, crack sealing.
So,
So
that's
Drake,
what the plan is, Drake is,
Drake is pushed back.
yes, there's no money to do it.
Well, I thought they were only gonna do a mile on Galvin.
They're gonna do what needs to
What
be
they
done,
talk-
the areas, it's not the whole, you're gonna have the wedging and the crack sealing that, in the areas that need it. And then you'll have the overcoat. So, it's not the whole, every single bit of it for the 2 miles, so. We're gonna make it work as much as we can
That's
make
all we
it
can
work.
do. The right way to do it would be to grind it all up,
And start
add
over.
base course, and put the inch or 2 on top. But we don't have money, and I think I expressed that at the annual meeting. If you
Yes.
don't raise the mill rate, or will live with what you got, you gotta live with what you got. Here it
I
is.
thought that guy from MSA had said that he didn't believe Man or Galvin was actually in that bad a shape compared with some of the other roads.
We met with the MSA and this was the decision that was made. Yes,
One last comment on Galvin. Tell them to work at the intersection really slow so that people can't pull around you on that right-hand side.
Well,
Go really, really slow.
we've called the county.
Oh, I've called the county, I have called the state, I have taken numbers.
Yep,
I let them pick them up at Stratford.
yep, I know.
It's
I've
bad.
called them too, and they just keep going around on Drake turn lane.
I suggested to 2 county cops, give me a paintball gun. I don't know which ones they are.
I think they should have put a no passing on right sign instead of right turn, must turn right.
Well, it's against the law in the state of
Well,
Wisconsin to pass on the right. okay?
I know.
So every person that does this is violating the
All
law.
they'd have to do is have somebody sit down there at the intersection
The signs
for
are there.
a week, every day for a
What do you
week,
have to
and
do
it
for a
would
week?
take care of
You'd
it.
have
But
carpal tunnel, man.
You are not gonna get any county police officers down here.
I know, they won't come at all, so that's our
Well,
problem.
they'll show up.
Well,
No, I tried.
You
I
call-
can't tell you how
you
many
called a
times
dozen
I tried.
times while, because I was with you a couple of times, when you called, because the detour was on E. They never sent an officer down, I remember them telling you on the phone that they were too busy, they didn't have enough personnel.
Yeah.
So they could care less about the town of McMillan.
Yeah.
So we should care less about their taxes.
I've
That's
seen
it.
county and I've seen state cops do the same thing, go around people on the right at that or up at Stat and other intersections.
Okay. Nothing further for, on the agenda?
Right on the agenda, so.
So do we,
Make a motion to adjourn then.
I'll second.
okay, a motion is made and seconded to adjourn, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Hey, Greg, when you're helping Steve with that, when you look through the audits and you see if there's anything in there.
Yes, sir. No, actually, it's not.